few who move toward the sounds of chaos, ready to respond at a moment's notice. And when the time comes, they are the first to move toward the sounds of tyranny, injustice, and despair. They are forged in the crucible of training. They are the few, the proud, the Marines.
President Sarkozy has paid tribute to the police involved in the operation. He told French people their Muslim compatriots had nothing to do with the mad motivations of a terrorist. And he announced a crackdown on people following extremist websites. From now on, any person who regularly looks at internet sites which glorify terrorism or which call for hatred and violence will be criminally punished. Any person going abroad for the purposes of indoctrination in terrorist ideology will be criminally punished. The spread and glorification of extremist ideologies will be penalized in law, with all the means already used in the fight against terrorism. The killings and their dramatic climax have sent shockwaves through France with just a month to go before its presidential election.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Friday, March 23rd, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube is ddarko2012 and ddarko2013, so please subscribe to that if you can. Okay, so you just saw that video there of the Marines taking on tyranny and bringing in truckloads of aid, because that's how it usually works, right? And then you saw this video here. I thought it was kind of interesting how he just kind of, you know, he's kind of, look at him how he walks in there like such a schlub, you know? He's like, he knows what he's bringing, right? He's like, oh, you know, yeah, it's people, got a lone gunman, and, you know, he jumped off a building, and we're going to take a bunch of your rights away, so yeah. Okay, and then he just kind of like, he just kind of walks away like, yeah, okay, I did my job, and then go back home. So, you know, there you go, French, you know, liberty, more liberties taken from you because of this lone gunman, right? And it's all about extremist ideology. So it's not actually about doing anything, it's about cracking down on people who are thinking extremist thoughts, and extremist thoughts can be something that maybe 20 years ago wasn't that extreme. So, you know, if you want to put a garden in your condo, you might get fined $50 a day, because that's kind of extreme to want to have a garden outside your apartment or something like that. You know, if you're in a wheelchair, bound to a wheelchair, you know, 4 years old, you could be an extremist, and that, you know, that qualifies to be treated as a terrorist if you try to travel in the airports. Okay, so Sarkozy jailed those who browse terror websites. Now they're going to deem what are terror websites. So France president proposed a sweeping new law. And isn't it funny how it had it all waiting in the wings, right? So he's got this new law, just happens to be dangling around right around this lone gunman. And oh yeah, by the way, I mentioned before how these two candidates are going to actually make out in the presidential elections. We'll get to that. And it says here that on Thursday that would jail those who visit extremist websites. One of several tough new measures floated in wake of the murderous shooting spree. Says after the death of an Islamist fanatic wanted for a horrifying series of execution-style murders have alarmed journalists and legal experts who say they risk pulling the plug on free expression. Now we have government to keep data on citizens with no terrorism ties. New rules on information kept by the National Counterterrorism Center raises worries among privacy advocates. So here the U.S. intelligence community will be able to store information about Americans with no ties to terrorism for up to 5 years under new Obama regime guidelines. So it's always about the terrorism, but then they slowly creep it on to, Well, if you have nothing to worry about, you got nothing to hide. So, you know, all those stupid people that believe in that philosophy, they'll just go along with it, right? So everybody else, these quote privacy advocates, just kind of get, you know, their worries get swept under the rug because, you know, the threat of terrorism is so imminent, right? You have terrorism on every block in Missouri and in Oregon and everywhere, right? They're just everywhere. New counterterrorism guidelines permit data on U.S. citizens to be held longer. So prior to that increase in time, it was 180 days, a half a year. Now it just went up to 5 years. Okay, next up we have Obama launches Bureau of Counterterrorism, and this is an older article, January 4th, 2012, but I just thought I'd throw it in there because we're talking about counterterrorism. So the Obama regime announced during a press briefing today in January 2012 the creation of the Bureau of Counterterrorism, which will coordinate with the United States entities such as the Department of Homeland Security and foreign governments. See, it's all one big anti-terrorist organization, all the intelligence agencies linked together to protect basically the corporations is what it is, and the corporations are run by families who have no liability. So it says here to develop civilian counterterrorism strategies and operations, and of course they deem what is extremist ideology, and of course if you speak critically of the government, that is extremist ideology. You're supposed to love and praise the government. I mean, I'm not joking. When social engineers, when they lay this stuff out, you're supposed to actually just love going to work, working, getting off, having fun, and just paying your taxes and being like, I'm a good citizen. Damn it, I got nothing to worry about. Yeah, come on in, raid me. Give me a nice police SWAT team raid. Hey, don't worry about it. If my wife is, and our kid is, sitting in a dirty diaper for hours while you guys sit there and interrogate us, and then what? Oh, you got a little light fixture that's not in code. We're gonna cite you for that. We're sorry. We meant to go to the downstairs apartment unit. Says here, search and surveillance bill passes in New Zealand. Opposition parties say New Zealand has been turned into a police state after Parliament last night narrowly passed the government's controversial search and surveillance bill, passed 61 votes to 57. Wow, that's not like in the United States where it's like 120 to 1 or 122, It was opposed by all opposition parties and the government's support, and it says, Greens MP Stephen Browning said the legislation put the powers exercised by the police in its heavily criticized 2007 so-called terror raids in Rotoki, in the hands of many government agencies. Then skipping down, the evils of the bill go to looking at people's texts, their voice mails, bugs in cars, chat room videos. Thousands of innocent people could have their communications caught up in electronic monitoring, Browning said. Military chopper to make secret test flights, and this is in Texas. The city's emergency management office issued an alert to residents Wednesday morning that a military helicopter would be conducting tests along the state highway 146 this afternoon. Large military helicopter will fly very low over along state 146 conducting those tests. The city's Homeland Security coordinator said no action is required by the residents. Yeah, what do you want to participate in the exercise other than to drive carefully in the area when the tests are being conducted as they're flying overhead, And they said the test was secret. You go in the comments, it says, I bet it was a black helicopter, and people go on and say that it's easier to hit with a 30 millimeter if the targets are in an open, relatively confined area. And they talk about how moving targets. So maybe these civilians are saying drive carefully because they're actually the mock simulated targets. Sarkozy enjoys election poll bounce after terror killings. And look at this. Report says France gunman on no-fly list. So just like the Christmas Day bomber, who is also an FBI asset, he was also on a no-fly list as well, and he had a handler. So remember this video from France 24. Gunman calls France 24 hours prior to the pre-dawn raid. Who said what? He made it very clear that he had links to Al-Qaeda. No evidence of links to Al-Qaeda. So it says here, no evidence that the gunman had links with Al-Qaeda or other terror groups. It says here there was no sign he had been trained or been in contact with organized groups or jihadists. So he could have been in contact with a certain type of terrorist group known as the government, and they could have actually trained him well. Says here that the suspected French killer had initially targeted a soldier. So remember about he's a right-wing Nazi, and he targeted a Jewish school and children and police. So, I mean, this guy is just the lowest of the lowest, right? I mean, you throw in that. He's killing children and he's killing Jews, and you know that's just right there is a red flag. And it says here, suspected French killer Mohammed Merah hadn't planned to attack the Jewish school where he allegedly gunned down the 3 children and a teacher, planning instead to target another soldier. According to the head of France's domestic intelligence agency. I haven't watched any of these videos, but I just saw like these pictures and stuff like that, and it just looked like it was like some kind of like a spoof video that you would see on YouTube, but I guess it was real. It says here, a French killer's path to jihadist rampage, right? This is just the same bullshit over and over and over again, recycled to the slaves. And I don't know if they're believing this or not, but, you know, look at this, right? He's a lone gunman, so like Breivik, a lone gunman, right? He probably had help. That's what I'm gonna go on a limb and say. He probably had help, like Breivik. And over the recent years, according to the merge account, said here that he'd been looking for a place to belong, seeking twice without success to join the French armed service. So there's always these failures who all of a sudden they're successful at killing people and terrorist acts, right? But everything else are just unsuccessful losers. French attacks could inspire the next generation of terrorists, say the experts. The lone wolves who plot to carry out small-scale attacks on soft targets, like those in which the 7 people killed in France, could be the future of terrorism. Next up, we have Germany set to ban extreme right party. Germany is going to try again to ban the extreme right National Democratic Party, which has been linked to a neo-Nazi cell. And we should kind of expect this, right? All these people with a few brain cells still rattling around in there. French gunmen's arsenal spotlights illegal arms trade. The illegal arms trade, right? Because, you know, like the ATF, who actually has been caught, basically dealing the guns to drug cartels and knowingly doing it and not caring, also dealing drugs. But, you know, this is what we got to look at. We got to look at when slaves have weapons, right? Because they're not supposed to have them. And the big thing I'm saying, too, is what could we have done to prevent it? Well, he was on a no-fly list. I mean, that's a start right there. And how did he obtain so many guns? Well, he's probably equipped by the terrorists, by the government. It says here, French gunman Mohammed Merah shot dead in a police raid. So he's shot dead in a police raid. Then it says this, Al-Qaeda-inspired French gunman dead after jumping from a window. And when I saw that he jumped from a window in a hail of bullets, I'm like, dude, this doesn't even sound real. Like I said, it sounds like something like a script or something that was made into a 15-minute spoof on YouTube. New Yorkers demand justice for slain African-American teenager. And it says here, in the U.S., people have staged a rally in New York City calling for justice for a slain African-American teen killed by a neighborhood watch guard last month. Organizers have dubbed the protest a Million Hoodies March because Trayvon Martin was wearing a hoodie jacket at the time of his murder. So, yeah, it is going to turn into a black and white thing, but even the mothers told protesters that the murder is not about black and white. This is about right and wrong. So, and I guess my biggest thing is Obama backs probe of Florida teen's death, right? So, how come he doesn't probe into all these people, protesters, that are shot with these tasers? Some of them are killed and that around the country, and probe that, right? How about probing, catching police planting drugs on a black man, right, in a car, or any man or any woman, right? But no, they don't look into that. They just look at these highly politicized issues like this. So that what? Oh, see, you can't have neighborhood watch. This is what happens when you give slaves guns and neighborhood watch. They'll just turn around and start, because they're a bunch of racist, ignorant rednecks, right? They're just going to start killing all kinds of blacks if you have neighborhood watch, and people do it by themselves. See, it says here, a rare moment of engagement by the president on a racially charged issue, killing an unarmed black teenager. What about the unarmed black teenager that went into his house and the cops illegally entered his residence and shot him in the back? How about that, Obama? Why don't you look into that? Speaking of the lone gunman, Staff Sergeant Robert Bales, like I said, to be charged with killing 16 people, even though it's been reports that there's actually a terror squad, a death squad that killed them. It says Afghan villagers told they would pay for bombs days ahead of the massacre of 16. They say the slayings were in retaliation for roadside bomb attack on U.S. forces the same day, and it could have been true, because if you look at YouTuber Smokin' Joe Fraser, he's been over there and he says what? That the United States is actually tipping off the Taliban and them as to where the U.S. forces are. if they pay them for intelligence. Why don't you go look into that, Obama? This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.